You know, no matter how dangerous this place might be, it's still beautiful. Wait, what's that sound? Oh no, oh no, oh no! Oh, it's so terrifying out there. You know what this place needs? A little home away from home. Somewhere that reminds me of home instead of this hellish nightmare of the Nether. There we are, and just a couple more finishing touches to make it feel really welcoming. Alright, let's head on in before the ghasts come out again. It's getting kinda cozy in here, but I quite like it. I mean, look at these amazing views of the Nether. Who can say they have a property with views like this? But I do think that it's missing maybe just something here. Now, what'll go well in this space? Well, we've got nowhere to relax, so I could just craft up a good old-fashioned Minecraft bed. And if I place it down right about there, yeah, look at that. That's looking really comfy. Well, no time like the present. Might as well try it out. Ah. Welcome back everybody to another episode of Minecraft The Journey with me, BugmanCX, and here I am in the Nether trying to defend myself. That's right, we've learned in beta 1.6 that beds now explode in the Nether, and this was done because, I just got to catch my breath after that. This was done because players were getting a little bit confused about being able to set their spawn in the Nether. You see, they thought that placing a bed would allow them to sleep, but there is no nighttime here in the Nether, it's just eternal hell. And so in beta 1.6, the behavior of the bed was changed so that if you try and use the bed will explode. But what's interesting about this is that you notice how it really didn't do any damage to me. I don't even have any armor on, and I only got half a heart's worth of damage. But look at this blast radius. This is a huge crater right here in the Nether, so the beds are actually a really interesting way of mining large portions of netherrack without having to spend time with a pick or create TNT or anything like that. So that might be something that I have to do, or I try to do later on if I need to do any kind of large-scale nether excavation. I did want to mention that Notch had tweeted about this particular mechanic change, and he said, "The decision to make the beds explode in the Nether as a solution on how to prevent setting the respawn there will forever be one of my favourite, so dumb it's actually clever mechanics in gaming." So as we can see, it was actually intentional behaviour, but it was only done really as a workaround to prevent players from being able to set their spawn there. This tweet is actually from May 2020, but it's good that we can actually look at tweets from the entire history of time in order to put a full picture of Minecraft's history together. Well, I don't want to be in here any longer than I need to, so I'm going to head back to the overworld. Look at that gorgeous town hall over there, will you? Now, recording Minecraft The Journey really is a team effort, although I do a lot of research into the different versions to make sure that I cover all of the tweets and the information and the features and the bugs and everything like that. I don't always capture everything, and sometimes a lot of you let me know through your own knowledge and experience about the reason things work the way they did, or you tell me about different bugs or features that happened around the time. And there is a duplication glitch which I was told about in these versions by many of you, which allows me to duplicate items in my inventory. So I did a little bit of research and I think I now know how to do it. What I need to do is make sure I have a full inventory, which I do here, and I should be able to duplicate my items like this by right-clicking on them. But what I need to do is actually make sure that when I do that, my inventory is actually full. So what I'm going to do is throw that dirt on the ground like that, and then fill up that slot so that there are no items, or no free slots in my inventory, I should say. Now, if I walk over this dirt, I can't pick it up because everything's full. But if I open up my inventory again and then right-click on my diamond pickaxe, I should pick it up. And now, when I right-click out of the crafting grid here, out of the inventory screen, it didn't work. Why didn't it work? Does it only work with these? It worked before. Why doesn't it work now? So I did do a little pre-test of this before recording this clip just to make sure that it all worked, and it did. So I'm trying it again. Aha. That's more like it. Okay, that was weird. As you saw, it worked with the shovel after a couple of tries. I don't really know why it didn't work with the pick, probably because it's got no durability. I think it has to do with durability. Let's try the sword. No, it doesn't work. It worked on my shovel. Okay, so does it work on this diamond block? No, I can't make it work on the diamond block. I really wanted to be able to duplicate diamond blocks, but I guess not. But I can definitely duplicate my shovel ad infinitum here. What I want to do though is let's just fill up my inventory with shovels. I want to take a look at my level.dat file and see if I can see whether these are actually I can just test it out right here. So here was one of the duplicated ones. Now, can I use it? No, it disappears. So this isn't really a duplication glitch. This is doing exactly the same as what was happening before, and the slot is filling up with an item called a shovel, but it's actually got a stack size of 0, so it's not really useful and not really there. Unless there's something I'm missing about this, I don't know, but this is my interpretation of this bug, not a very useful one. Well, I played around a little bit more with that in between, and this is what I found. I can only do this with the shovel, and I don't need a full inventory after all. I can just do it, just like this. It just works. And they do all pick up, and just like before, they disappear. But this is what's weird. Have a look inside my level.dat file at the moment. If we have a look at the inventory slot which shows the shovel, we can see that its quantity is actually -21. So if I do this a few more times, let's see how it changes the quantity. Let's try this again, and I'm going to be careful and make sure that I only do this once. So we've duplicated it once now. Let's pick it up again and have a look at what's happened to our inventory. Well, now this is very interesting. So the shovel that we duplicated is this one here, and it shows that count is 0, which means there are 0 shovels in that slot. But have a look at the next slot down. This is the original shovel that we duplicated. And previously it was -21, and so it subtracted 1 from that, and -21 minus 1 is -22. So does that technically mean that this shovel will just continuously reduce by 1, and that means that it'll stay in the inventory forever and ever? I really don't know. Beta 1.6 was a big bug fixing update, and if you include all of the 1.6 minor versions, over 100 bugs were fixed. If you want to see them all, you can have a look at Notch's post linked down below, but I wanted to just call out a few bugs that we've explored in this series that are now supposed to be fixed in this version. Quite a few interesting ones in there, but then of course there's this one, which we experienced today. Fixed beds in the Nether. Fixed. A few minor tweaks were also made, like the jukebox now supports up to 15 discs, powered rails are now even speedier, and fire spread was nerfed so that it spreads more slowly and won't spread infinitely. Another interesting one is that the icons in your inventory will now render much brighter. Have a look at this, I think it looks much better. Another thing I wanted to mention was one of language. Ever since we got the tooltips, we now know the name of what every block and item are within the game, although Notch, the creator of the game, constantly contradicts this. In his own change notes, he described trapdoors as hatches and the jukebox as a record player. If the creator of the game can't get this language right, how are we expected to? Here's an example of a change in the game which is intended to bring some positive changes but also ends up bringing some negative ones. We're all familiar by now with the ability to shift-click things in and out of our inventory like this, and this has been such a game changer for me. It makes things so much easier. But you can also do this now in the crafting table as well. But this comes with a few quirks that you have to be really careful of. For example, if I use these wooden planks to craft up some stairs, and I have to split the stacks like this all the time, because this is the only way that you can really fill up the crafting table into the recipe you need. Now, the way that I did that meant that I can create a maximum of 32 stairs. That's 4 times 8, because as soon as all of these planks are consumed, there are not enough planks left to create more stairs. I can shift click this into my inventory, and when I do, I should end up with 8 and 8 planks left in these slots. But unfortunately, I don't. Have a look what happens when I shift click this. I get my 32 stairs and also 8 pressure plates, which is just really annoying. So what I have to do is be extra careful about how I distribute the wood in the recipe, or the items in the recipe, to make sure that I don't accidentally shift click in extra stuff that I didn't want and waste a whole bunch of wood. I hope this gets fixed soon, because this is one of the most annoying issues with Minecraft for me at the moment. Well, you know what? I think I've had enough going over all of the different technical changes and things like that in this version, and I want to get out and about and do something a little bit more fun, explore something new. Now, one of the changes in Beta 1.6 has to do with grass and seeds. Previously, you would hoe the ground like this, and you would get a possibility of the grass block dropping some seeds. Now, that functionality has been removed, or technically it's been changed. You can no longer get seeds by just tilling the ground like this. So what are we going to do? How are we going to get our seeds? Well, to do that, let's go out and explore some brand new chunks. Oh, I'm excited. What you're looking at on screen here is a 2D top-down render of my beta lake area, and I generated this map using Cartograph, which for me is a classic old mapping tool, and it's one of the more reliable ones that I've been able to use when generating maps of my beta area world. Now, if I scroll this across to the right-hand side, if we head due east from the beta area lake, we're going to pass the skeleton farm there, and then there's a little bit of a desert, followed by some little lakes and a little bit of a small ocean, and then even further than that there is this snowy biome just here off to the right hand side, and then beyond that you can see we haven't generated any new chunks beyond that point. So in order for me to generate new chunks, this is exactly where I'm going to head, due east from the lake, and we will get there. Well, we've made it into brand new chunks, and how do we know we're in brand new chunks? Because look at this, we have grass. Now, perhaps I didn't choose the best biome to head off into because this is covered in snow everywhere, but as we can see, this is the regular grass block, and on top of these blocks now is grass, and if we break the grass, we have a chance of obtaining a seed. Let's have a look. Come on, grass. And there we are, our first official grass seed. So this is the new method for collecting seeds, but I don't have to worry about this because I've already got plenty of wheat crops and they yield seeds as well. It's just that if I was starting out as a new player, this would be the way that I would have to gather them. And unfortunately, this grass won't grow anywhere near our already developed areas because those chunks have already been generated and the grass will only appear on freshly generated chunks. There's no way for me to make this type of grass grow, not even with bone meal or anything like that, at least not yet. So this is a feature exclusive to brand new chunks. Of course, I would pack everything I needed. I've got food, I've got wood, I've got blocks, but I forgot to pack a bed. So I have to hunt sheep now before the sun goes down, and hopefully I can find some. Oh, hello! You're just what I needed. Now you better give me 3 pieces of wool, please. Oh no. Oh! Yes! Thank you very much, sheep. Your life was given to save mine. I'm heading off in this southerly direction in the hopes of finding one of the other variations of grass. This is a bit of a funny block, and we're going to come to the details as to why a little bit later on in this episode, but for now I need to head this way to see if I can find the fern. Well, it did not take me very long at all to find this little outcropping of ferns here. Look at that, it looks like a tiny little Christmas tree, doesn't it? The fern is pretty much exactly the same as the grass in terms of its behavior. If I were to break some of these, eventually I would find... Come on, I don't want to break too many. Well, there we go, finally. Eventually, we got ourselves some seeds. So the ferns will drop seeds just like the tall grass does. And these are not renewable at the moment either, so I don't want to break any more of them. Once they're gone, they're gone. Ooh, have a look at this. This is the new dead bush. This thing grows in the desert. It grows on sand blocks like this, and if I were to break it, it wouldn't return anything. In fact, this is quite funny because this is in the tiniest little desert ever. I was just walking right through here when I happened to stumble across it, and I haven't seen any others. Now, if you know your history of Minecraft, you know that there's a very similar block that looks a lot like this, but isn't actually a dead bush. And I know I'm being very cryptic, but I'm going to come back to this towards the end of the episode, and we'll discuss this in a little bit more detail. For now, it's my first dead bush. If you've been watching my series for a while now, then you'll already know how Minecraft stores its blocks and its block variations. In this case, we have 2 wool blocks. Wool blocks are block ID 35, and in this case, if there's no additional metadata set, then the default state will apply. So this is why we see a white wool block. The orange wool block in this case is also block ID 35, but it has an additional data value set, which is variation type 1, and variation type 1 is orange, and all of the other colours apply. Over here we have the same for saplings. The block ID for a sapling is 6, with no additional metadata, it's just the default sapling type. Block ID 6 with a variation type 1 is spruce, and a variation type 2 is the birch. Over here is where it starts to get interesting. This is the new dead bush that was added in Minecraft Beta 1.6. Now, the dead bush has some special properties. First, whenever it generates, it must be on top of a sand block. Also, when you break the dead bush, nothing drops. The block ID for the dead bush is 32. Over here, we have the 2 grass types that were added. Grass shares the same block ID of 31, and the tall grass here is block ID 31 with a variation type of 1. The fern here is block ID 31 with a variation type of 2. But wait a minute, what happens if you have block ID 31 but without a variation value? Over here, if you have block ID 6 and no variation, you get the default sapling, or the default white wool block. So what exactly do you get with block ID 31? Well, I'm glad you asked, and this is where it gets a little strange. In my inventory, I have placed block ID 31 with no damage value or no variation value set, and as you can see, it just looks like an untinted grass texture. Let's place it down. What? It looks the same as this one. At first glance, it might look the same, but these are definitely not the same. Although these 2 blocks share the same texture, they are in fact very different. Like I said before, this block has unique properties. It needs to be placed on top of sand, and it doesn't drop anything if broken. With this one, it can be placed on top of grass, but it can't be placed on top of sand. And if you break this, it has a chance of dropping seeds, just like the other 2. And that is because this is exactly the same as all of these different types of block ID 31, and so they all share the same characteristics. What's also interesting is how this one is recessed into the block a little bit, whereas over here, the dead bush stands up much more proudly. You can see every single pixel on its stem. So this block here is called the SHRUB, or at least that's what it's known as. I don't know when it gets its official name because, as you saw in my inventory, it had no tooltip. I don't know why these 2 different block types exist exactly, but I can speculate. What I think might have happened is that block ID 31 was originally intended to be the block ID that was shared for the dead bush, the grass, and the fern. But because the properties of the dead bush need to be slightly different to the grass and the fern, it must have been re-implemented under its own block ID, just sharing the same texture. So that's what I think happened. What do you think happened? Now, in the interest of fairness, I just wanted to point out that it is not possible to obtain any of these blocks in survival Minecraft at the moment, and I had to edit my inventory to put some of these in. In fact, even with the grass and the fern here, it wasn't even possible to display these correctly, and I had to use a custom texture pack. In fact, let me just turn that off. There we are, my magic secrets are revealed. I just retextured the rose and the yellow flower because if I did place a grass block and a fern block right down next to each other, then they would be untextured. They'd be that grey colour, so it wouldn't have been an effective demonstration of those 2 blocks. As for the SHRUB and the dead bush, Well, like I said, this one doesn't naturally generate anywhere in the world, nor will it ever, as far as I know, so this is an extremely unique item. And what is interesting about this is that because it's block ID 31 with no variation, we have a stack of these over in the beta 1.6 test build 3 chests that we set aside a couple of episodes ago. So if I ever want to come and do something with these, or just inspect them, which is probably more likely, then I've always got a stack of them over there in those chests. But right now, like I said, we're not supposed to have these, so I need to get rid of them. Well, we've certainly learned a lot in today's episode, haven't we? These episodes do take quite a bit of effort to put together. There's a fair bit of research that I have to do, and there's a lot of editing involved to just get everything right. So if you would like to support me further, then please feel free to go down to the description box below, and there's a link to Patreon there. Feel free to check it out. I also run a public Discord server. If you would like to join that, then there are links to that in the description box below. And that's the end of today's episode, so hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Until then, this has been BugmanCX. You've been watching Minecraft The Journey. Bye bye!